If there's one type of character that fascinates everyone, it's the mastermind, that genius manipulator who's always 10 steps ahead of their enemies. We saw this done brilliantly in Death Note, where the battle isn't physical, but purely mental. It's that intellectual game of cat and mouse that keeps you glued to your seat. Now, when you mix that level of strategic genius with a tyrannical empire and giant robots, you get a story that left a lasting mark. Code Geass. For many fans, this is the ultimate mecha anime, but calling it just a robot fighting show would be a huge disservice. Lelouch's journey to take down the Britannian Empire, the very empire ruled by his own father, is a masterclass in politics, betrayal, and morally gray decisions. It's basically a chessboard where the pieces are human lives, and checkmate could cost the protagonist his soul. Here, the hero lies, manipulates, and uses a supernatural power to control others, all in the name of building a better world and protecting the ones he loves. But the question remains, do the ends really justify the means? Today, we're diving back into this wild journey of revenge and revolution. Get ready. In Code Geass, no alliance is ever truly safe. Here we meet a young Lelouch and Suzaku in a sort of fairy tale setting, with a mysterious girl named C2 observing from a distance. Cut to the sound of buzzing cicadas as C2's voice narrates the apocalypse. Britannia has conquered Japan, and the two childhood friends are caught right in the middle of the storm. While Suzaku seems resigned to their fate, Lelouch is utterly furious and vows to destroy Britannia.
Swear, huh? I swear, Suzaku, so help me. I will one day obliterate Britannia!
7 years later, Japan is now Area 11. Britannia rules everything, and any Japanese person who fights back is labeled a terrorist. The military is in a high-speed chase after a stolen truck, showing they mean business. On TV, a propaganda piece spins a false narrative about the incident. We cut to a room where Lelouch and his friend Rival crash a game of chess. A smug nobleman is about to win, but Lelouch bets he can turn the tables in under 9 minutes. His first move? Moving his king. Take note, because this is pure foreshadowing. At school, we meet Millie, Mina, and Shirley, who has a massive crush on Lelouch and hates his gambling habits. Meanwhile, the viceroy of Area 11, Clovis, gives a completely phony speech on TV, but behind the scenes, he's a complete jerk. His party is interrupted by news of the truck, and he orders his pilots, including Jeremiah and Valletta, to retrieve the cargo. By chance, Lelouch and Rival cause an accident involving the truck. Lelouch, playing the Good Samaritan, goes to help and ends up getting thrown inside the vehicle. There, he discovers he's with terrorists, and one of them is Callan, who pilots a giant nightmare to fight off the military. The truck crashes again, and who should appear? Suzaku, Lelouch's childhood friend, now an honorary Britannian soldier. They recognize each other, but the stolen cargo opens. It wasn't poison gas, it was C2. Suzaku's superiors order him to shoot Lelouch, but he refuses and takes a bullet in the back. To make matters worse, Clovis orders a massacre in the Shinjuku ghetto. In the middle of the chaos, C2 throws herself in front of a bullet to save Lelouch. Before dying, she offers him a contract, the power of kings. He accepts, stands up, and commands the soldiers to kill themselves, and they obey. With smiles on their faces, a legend is born.
I, Lelouch v. Britannia, command you. Now all of you, die.
Lelouch is completely reeling from his new power, Geass, which he received from the mysterious girl. Before he can process it, a nightmare piloted by Valletta storms the area. She sees the dead guards and is baffled. Lelouch tries to use Geass on her, but discovers he needs direct eye contact. Plan B. He pretends to be a nobleman, convinces her to exit her nightmare, and only then uses his power to steal the machine. Genius. Meanwhile, Suzaku wakes up in a hospital. He survived the gunshot thanks to a pocket watch that deflected the bullet. The eccentric scientist Lloyd invites him to pilot a new experimental nightmare. Back in Shinjuku, the massacre continues. Callan is trying to defend civilians, and Lelouch, now with a stolen nightmare, decides to ally himself with the terrorists to turn the tide. He contacts Callan and starts issuing tactical orders, like he's playing a real-time strategy game. She's suspicious of the mysterious voice, but obeys. With his strategy, they begin to decimate Britannia's forces. The rest of the resistance joins in, and following his commands, they dominate the battlefield. Clovis gets desperate and tries one last gambit, but Lelouch has anticipated everything and sets a trap that destroys his army in the subway tunnels. Cornered, Clovis authorizes the use of a secret weapon, the Lancelot, a 7th-generation nightmare, piloted by by none other than Suzaku. The Lancelot is a monster. Suzaku single-handedly annihilates the terrorist forces. He spots Lelouch, and a frantic chase begins. The Lancelot is just too fast. Callan tries to help but is defeated in seconds. Just as Suzaku is about to capture Lelouch, he stops everything to save a mother and child from falling debris. Talk about a hero, right? Lelouch uses the opening, disguises himself as a soldier, and uses Geass to infiltrate Clovis's base. At the exact moment the terrorists are about to be executed, a ceasefire order saves everyone. Inside the base, Lelouch points a gun at Clovis and reveals his identity, Lelouch v. Britannia, the prince everyone thought was dead. The scene is one of utter destruction in Shinjuku. The soldiers are confused by the ceasefire order, while Callan, Ogi, and the others are released from the battle zone. The scene cuts to Lelouch holding Clovis at gunpoint. The viceroy tries to play the cool uncle, happy to see his nephew alive, but Lelouch isn't buying it. He won't become a pawn on anyone's political chessboard. The conversation turns serious. Lelouch wants to know who killed his mother, Marianne. A flashback shows the tragedy, which his sister Nunnally witnessed. He's certain the royal family was behind it. Clovis swears he knows nothing. Lelouch, having lost his patience, uses Geass. The truth is that Clovis is useless and can only tell him to ask Prince Schneisel or Princess Cornelia. Seeing he won't get anything more out of him, Lelouch pulls the trigger.
We may have different mothers, but you and I are still blood!
You can't change the world without getting your hands dirty.
The next day, Lelouch is at school as if nothing happened. He sees the news of Clovis's death, which the media is framing as a terrorist poison gas attack. The guilt hits him hard, and he nearly throws up. It's then that he runs into Callan and figures out right away that she was the terrorist pilot. Later, he corners her and uses Geass to confirm everything. She's part of the resistance and is half Britannian. He tries to use his power again to make her forget, but it fails. He now knows Geass only works once per person, and Callan becomes deeply suspicious of him. That night, Lelouch shares a sweet moment with his blind sister Nunnally. She dreams of a kinder world, and they make a promise to never lie to each other. To throw Callan off his trail, Lelouch devises a brilliant plan. He has their maid, Sayoko, call Callan using a recording of his voice as Zero, the mysterious leader. The call comes at the exact moment he creates an awkward situation with Callan in the showers. The call summons her for a mission, and she concludes that Lelouch can't possibly be the leader. Checkmate. But the peace is short-lived. Lelouch and Callan are walking together when they see the news. It's been announced that Clovis's killer has been captured, and the culprit is Suzaku, his childhood friend. Suzaku is interrogated about Clovis's murder. The murder weapon turned up with his fingerprints on it, but he swears up and down he's never seen the gun before. No one believes him, of course. Meanwhile, Lelouch is in Big Brother mode, assuring Nunnally it's all just a military mistake and that Suzaku will be fine. Behind the scenes, however, he's already using his Geass on an engineer to create Zero's official costume. Priorities, right? At school, a memorial service is held for Clovis. The Lancelot's head developers comment that Suzaku's situation is a dead end, and that Jeremiah used the arrest to bar all non-Britannians from the military. After the ceremony, Lelouch slips away from his friends, saying he's found an opponent far better than any in chess. And what an opponent. As Zero, he calls Callan and the rest of the resistance. He shows them the Britannian city on one side of the train and the ruins where the 11s live on the other to make it clear. Their fight isn't against people, but against the Empire itself. Then comes the master plan. Jeremiah decides to transfer Suzaku in public to put on a show, but it's Zero who steals the show, appearing in the middle of the street on top of a luxury car, just like Clovis's.
You dare desecrate His Highness's transport? Come out of there!
He bluffs, claiming to have poison gas, and shocks everyone by confessing that he was the one who killed the prince. To cap off the spectacle, he whispers the word orange to Jeremiah, who panics. Zero activates Geass and basically hacks the guy's brain, ordering him to aid in their escape. With Jeremiah providing cover, Zero and Suzaku get away. Later, Zero tries to recruit Suzaku, but he refuses, insisting he'll change the system from within. To end, Nunnally is at home when C2 simply shows up at her door, alive and well. In Area 18, we meet Cornelia as she storms in, tearing everything apart with her nightmare. She announces her next stop is Area 11 to hunt down Zero and avenge Clovis. Meanwhile, at Lelouch's house, the vibe is pure rom-com. C2 is living there, and an innocent Nunnally thinks the two are engaged. Lelouch panics, and even spills tea on purpose to get C2 away from his sister and avoid more questions. In his room, he discovers that the whole orange thing was just a brilliant piece of fake news he invented. invented to sow discord in the military. Meanwhile, Suzaku is cleared of all charges, and just as he's released, a pink-haired girl named Yuffie literally falls out of the sky into his arms. The two spend the day together, secretly followed by Lloyd. Back at school, the chaos continues. Callan asks Lelouch for help tracing a number, and C2 is nearly discovered walking around in his clothes. To avoid being caught, Lelouch grabs Callan's face, and Shirley, who happens to be passing by, thinks they're kissing. It sparks gossip for the entire week. Night falls, and Suzaku takes Yuffie to the Shinjuku ghetto. There, Jeremiah falls into a trap set by the purist faction, who want to eliminate him. But who shows up to save the day? Suzaku, piloting the Lancelot. The fight is intense until Yuffie steps onto the battlefield and drops a bombshell. She is Euphemia Britannia, the third princess of the Empire. She orders everyone to stop and asks for Suzaku's help to make things better.
I command you!
It can't be.
I am Euphemia Britannia of the Empire, and the third princess of the royal family.
Later, she gets a scolding from her sister Cornelia for being so reckless. To top it all off, the episode ends with Suzaku walking into Lelouch's classroom, introducing himself as the newest student at Ashford Academy. The stage is set for some serious drama. We cut to the Emperor of Britannia having a conversation with Clovis's ghost. Bizarre. At Ashford Academy, Suzaku's arrival is the talk of the town, and the student body isn't happy about the 11 terrorists in their midst. Lelouch gives a secret signal, and the two meet on the roof for a private talk. Suzaku thinks they shouldn't be friends to protect their identities, but the issue is left unresolved. Later, Suzaku visits Lelouch and Nunnally, and the three childhood friends share a sweet reunion. In the kitchen, C2 questions Lelouch about the safety of having Suzaku so close, but he seems confident. Meanwhile, Jeremiah is officially demoted for letting Zero escape. Life isn't easy for our orange boy. The next day, Suzaku's situation at school gets worse. His locker is vandalized and everyone shuns him, but the real chaos begins when a cat named Arthur steals Zero's helmet. Lelouch panics and a hilarious chase ensues throughout the school.
Hey, give that back!
To make matters worse, the student council president Millie turns the cat hunt into a competition. Whoever catches it gets a kiss from a council member. The girls dream of kissing Lelouch, while Callan, who's never been kissed, is desperate to avoid a forced first kiss. The chase leads Lelouch and Suzaku to the roof, where Lelouch nearly falls but is saved by Suzaku. The helmet finally falls off the cat, and Lelouch's secret remains safe. As a reward, Nunnally gives them both a kiss on the cheek, and Suzaku is invited to join the council. To wrap things up, everyone watches the Emperor's speech, a display of social Darwinism that leaves both Lelouch and Suzaku equally furious, reminding everyone that they share a common enemy. In a flashback to 8 years ago, where a young Lelouch confronts his father, Emperor Charles, about his mother's murder. But the father of the year couldn't care less. He basically calls his son useless and ships him and Nunnally off to Japan as mere political bargaining chips. Back in the present, Cornelia promotes Suzaku after seeing the Lancelot in action. At school, the mood is pure teen drama. Shirley is convinced Callan and Lelouch are an item, and Millie discovers her parents have arranged her marriage just to restore the family's prestige. But the calm is shattered when Cornelia sets a trap in the Saitama ghetto to lure out Zero. She even announces the time of the attack on TV, as if to say, "Come and get me if you dare." Lelouch knows it's a trap, but he can't resist and decides to go. C2 tries to stop him, even pointing a gun at him. Lelouch's response? He points a gun at his own head, saying that a life without purpose is already a form of death. Intense. C2 finally gives in. Lelouch infiltrates, steals a nightmare, and joins the local resistance. The battle starts to turn in his favor, but the ever-cunning Cornelia pulls her troops back. Lelouch's plan to get close to her fails, and he's cornered when she orders all pilots to open their cockpits. Desperation sets in, but then, out of nowhere, C2 appears dressed as Zero, creating chaos and giving our hero the perfect chance to slip away. In the end, he complains to C2 that the fight wasn't fair, and after getting an earful, he vows to create an entire nation to take on Britannia.
Them up. I'll raise an army that can't lose to Britannia. A people. A nation!
Shirley, Millie, and Nina decide to take a train trip, but what was supposed to be a relaxing ride turns into a nightmare. They end up as hostages of a terrorist group that has seized a luxury hotel, and to make matters worse, Princess Euphemia is also among the captives. Cornelia wants to resolve the situation with brute force, but her plan to sink the hotel is thwarted by the terrorists' makeshift cannon. With her little sister inside, her hands are tied. Seeing the news, Lelouch decides he can't stand by. He gathers his crew, hands out stylish black uniforms forms and declares the birth of a new team, the Order of the Black Knights. With a bold plan, Zero and his squad head straight for Britannia's front lines. Face to face with Cornelia, he convinces her he's going to save Euphemia, and surprisingly, she lets him pass. But of course, there's a plan B. Cornelia intends to use Zero as bait to eliminate everyone at once. She unleashes Suzaku and the Lancelot on a near-suicidal mission to destroy the cannon and the hotel's foundation. Inside, Zero uses his Geass to make the terrorists take each other out. Outside, Suzaku puts on a show and destroys the cannon, fulfilling his part of the plan. The hotel begins to collapse, and Suzaku panics, thinking everyone has died. But then comes the plot twist. Zero appears on a boat with all the hostages, safe and sound. He seizes the moment to introduce himself to the world as the leader of the Black Knights, vowing to protect the weak and pass judgment on the world. What an entrance! 2 weeks after the lake incident, Callan's life is in turmoil. Besides fighting with the Black Knights, who have now become vigilantes cleaning the city of corruption, she has to deal with heavy family drama. Her mother works as a maid in their own home, and Callan despises her for it. At school, the student council is more concerned with tying Lelouch to a chair to dress him up in a cat costume. Priorities, right? Meanwhile, Callan learns about a drug called Refrain, which makes people hallucinate about their past. The Black Knights plan a raid on a shipment, and that's where everything goes wrong. During the operation, Callan storms the drug dealer's hideout and comes face to face with a horrifying scene. Dozens of drugged Japanese people, including her own mother. A police nightmare attacks, and in the confusion, her mother, still hallucinating, walks toward the danger. It's in this moment that it dawns on Callan. Her mother endured all that humiliation just to stay close to her. With a new sense of purpose, Callan turns the tide and defeats the enemy.
Maybe I'm the fool.
At the hospital, with her mother sentenced to 20 years in prison, Callan makes a promise at her bedside. She will change the world with the Black Knights, so that one day, the two of them can finally live in peace. Meanwhile, Villetta starts having flashbacks of the Geass, but she can't remember Lelouch's face. The net is closing in. Here we see Lelouch chilling by the pool, reviewing applications to join the Black Knights, while C2 is more interested in taking a dip. He notices a Britannian name on the list and gets suspicious, thinking it could be a spy. Lelouch explains his strategy is simple. The 11s hate terrorism, which is Britannia's specialty, and the Black Knights openly fight against it. It's the perfect recipe for becoming heroes. Meanwhile, Jeremiah and Villetta go to confront the Britannian applicant, but the guy plays dumb. They then head for the Narita Mountains, where the Japan Liberation Front is hiding. Speaking of hideouts, the Black Knights receive their new toys. Brand new nightmares, including an exclusive and super powerful model, the Gurren Mat 2. And guess who gets it? Callan, of course. Zero tells her she's the team's ace, the best pilot they have. Zero then decides to take a stroll through the Narita Mountains. He uses Geass on some lazy guards and starts preparing the battlefield, leaving the rest of the team in the dark about his real plan. On the other side, Princess Cornelia mobilizes her troops to crush the Japan Liberation Front, and Euphemia, her younger sister, insists on coming along to see the war up close. The trap is set. Cornelia's forces surround the mountain, leaving both the JLF and the Black Knights cornered. Panic ensues, and Tamaki even tries to shoot Zero, but the masked man is unfazed and lays it on the line. They either live with him or die with him. With their team spirit renewed, Zero gives the order. Callan activates the plan, causing a massive landslide that sweeps down the mountain. It's total chaos. In the confusion, Jeremiah, who is stuck on rear guard duty, ignores orders and charges at Zero. The masked man only needs 2 words to set Jeremiah off: Orange Boy. The guy goes berserk and attacks with everything he's got, but Callan, with her new Gurren, intercepts the attack like it's nothing, fries Jeremiah's nightmare, and ejects him in a broken mess.
What the hell's happening?
Lord Jeremiah, eject!
I can't run now! Zero's right in front of me! He's standing right here!
With another victory under his belt, Lelouch declares that only one thing remains: capturing Cornelia. The landslide was a success, wiping out 80% of Britannia's forces. Callan, in full demolition mode with the Gurren, continues to sweep through the remaining enemies. Seeing the situation, Zero decides it's time to corner Cornelia, but just as the Japan Liberation Front is about to be defeated, Todo and his squad emerge, turning the tables and heading straight for the princess. Meanwhile, Euphemia, supervising from a distance, intelligence, refuses to send in more troops to prevent further casualties. That's when Lloyd, the eccentric scientist, calls, saying he and Suzaku are bored, and asks to deploy the Lancelot. Yuffie, after a silent plea from Suzaku, agrees. At the exact moment Callan is about to finish off Cornelia, the Lancelot appears out of nowhere, saving the princess. The fight everyone has been waiting for begins. Gurren versus Lancelot. It's an epic clash of giant robots, but Suzaku manages to push Callan off a cliff. With his ace out of commission, Zero orders a retreat but ends up cornered by Suzaku. Just as the Lancelot's pilot is about to fire, C2 appears, placing herself between them. Suzaku recognizes her instantly. She touches the Lancelot and sends a psychic blast that fries Suzaku's brain, showing him visions of the past and of his father. Lelouch, trying to help C2, touches her and gets pulled into the same mental trip. The two rivals begin experiencing horrific visions simultaneously. In a panic, Suzaku fires wildly, injuring C2 with the debris. Britannia loses the Battle of Narita and retreats. Later, in a cave, Lelouch tends to C2's wounds and, while she's unconscious, hears her real name. When she wakes up, a moment of vulnerability unfolds. C2 confesses that she's forgotten who she truly is, and Lelouch, for the first time, thanks her for everything. He repeats her name, which we can't hear, and the moment is so intense, she's left speechless. It's then that Callan finds them, meeting C2 for the first time. The battle is over, but the consequences are just beginning. Cornelia is furious. Suzaku is in a state of shock.
Apparently, it was going berserk.
A failure unworthy of my older brother's forces.
And Jeremiah, whom everyone thought was dead, reappears looking like a zombie before collapsing in front of a mysterious truck. After the defeat at Narita, Britannia's morale is at rock bottom. Cornelia considers the battle a total failure, while support for the Black Knights is surging. At Ashford Academy, life goes on. A smitten Shirley finally manages to ask Lelouch out to a concert. Little does she know her crush has a slightly more complicated schedule. At the Black Knights base, Zero receives an invitation from the Kyoto group for a secret meeting. Tamaki, as usual, is more concerned with spending the organization's money, but Callan fiercely defends Zero, saying it doesn't matter who he is as long as he fights on their side. Later, there's a bizarre scene with Mina and a photo of Euphemia, but none only arrives and breaks the strange mood. The meeting with Kyoto takes place atop Mount Fuji, which has become a giant mining facility. A veiled man demands that Zero remove his mask, but Zero, always one step ahead, has prepared a trap. The one who removes the mask is C2, to everyone's surprise. The real Zero appears inside a nightmare and reveals he knows the host's identity, Taizo Kirihara, a businessman acting as a double agent. Away from the others, Lelouch shows his face to Kirihara, who recognizes him as the exiled prince he helped years ago. Shocked, Kirihara swears fealty to him, securing a powerful ally for the Black Knights. Meanwhile, Shirley goes to Narita. There, amidst the rubble and body recovery efforts, she receives the worst news of her life. Her father, an innocent civilian, died during the landslide caused by the Black Knights. That night, it's pouring rain. Lelouch arrives late for their date and finds Shirley standing in the rain, completely shattered. With tears in her eyes, she asks if Zero really fights for the weak, since her father, a good man, was one of his victims. It hits Lelouch like a ton of bricks. His victory costs the life of the father of the girl he cares about. Desperate and broken, Shirley collapses into his arms, kisses him, and begs for help to cope with the pain. At Joseph's funeral, Shirley and her mother are present. The atmosphere grows tense when Shirley's mother breaks down emotionally and refuses to allow the casket to be reburied. As Shirley tries to calm her mother, we see the entire student council is present and Lelouch can't hide the guilt on his face. A quick flashback shows a young Shirley saying she wanted to marry her dad, a sweet and heartbreaking scene. Back in the present, Callan offers a half-hearted apology. After all, she caused the landslide, though she doesn't say it out loud. Later, Suzaku lets loose, calling Zero a coward for sending others to do his dirty work. This gives everyone pause. Lelouch stays behind, and Shirley apologizes for the kiss, saying it was just the trauma talking, which leaves our protagonist even more conflicted. In Lelouch's room, C2 taunts him, asking if he only regrets killing people he knows, forgetting that all the others had families too. Lelouch snaps, throws her onto the bed, and says he's been prepared for anything since he killed Clovis. Meanwhile, Valletta shows up in a red car and convinces Shirley to spy on Lelouch. Across town, the Black Knights receive intel that Cornelia is planning to attack the Japan Liberation Front. Zero has a plan. Use the JLF as bait. He plants a bomb on an oil tanker, blows it up, and blames the JLF, making it look like a suicide attack.
What the hell is going on?
Dethard, watching it all unfold, is blown away by Zero's chaotic genius. The final battle is insane. Zero and Callan corner Cornelia, but at the critical moment, Zero sees Shirley and freezes. Suzaku seizes the opportunity, swoops in, and destroys Zero's nightmare. In the confusion, Shirley approaches the wrecked cockpit, picks up Zero's gun, and his mask falls off, revealing Lelouch's bloodied face. The shock is absolute. The drama picks up exactly where it left off. Callan manages to shake Suzaku and the Black Knights retreat. Lelouch, still in shock, realizes two terrible things. Someone saw his face, and his gun is missing. And who took it? Shirley, who not only took the gun but shot someone with it. In her room, she writes what looks like a note, but her roommate mistakes it for a love letter to Lelouch. The vibes are all wrong. The next day, Lelouch calls Suzaku to see if anything is amiss and learns Shirley didn't show up. He starts putting the pieces together. Meanwhile, he and C2 break into Shirley's room to investigate. There, they find a train schedule with a trip to Narita circled. That's where they're headed. In Narita, Shirley is at a memorial when a bizarre blindfolded man appears out of nowhere. His name is Mao, and he has a mind-reading Geass. He begins to psychologically torture Shirley, revealing what really happened. After seeing Lelouch, Valletta also discovered Zero's identity. She started bragging, and a distraught Shirley shot her. The person she shot was Valletta. Mao calls Shirley a murderer and a witch, and she breaks down. When Lelouch and C2 arrive, Mao challenges him to a game of chess on a cable car. The problem is, Mao can read every move Lelouch thinks of making. The situation escalates when Shirley, controlled by Mao, points a gun at Lelouch and fires. She misses, but chaos erupts. C2 manages to knock Mao away, and Shirley confesses what she did. To resolve the situation in the most drastic way possible, Lelouch uses his Geass on her and erases all her memories of him.
Shirley, I'm sorry about your father. If I could be reborn into a new life, I would.
It's the end of the line for their relationship. To top it all off, Ogi finds Valletta unconscious, alive, but with amnesia. On the train back, C2 explains Mao's power. He can read minds within a 500-meter radius and can't turn it off. Basically, a walking nightmare, which is why he's so unstable. We see Mao in a library, suffering from the noise of the minds around him, calming himself with a recording of C2's voice. It's clear he's obsessed with her. Lelouch, like a true Batman, prepares to face him. He installs cameras all over the school and has the Black Knights tail him. The tension rises when he and C2 argue and he calls her a monster for creating Mao. To make matters worse, Shirley appears and doesn't recognize Lelouch, making the situation incredibly awkward. C2 decides to handle the problem herself and goes to meet Mao, knowing full well it's a trap. The meeting takes place at Clovis Land, an abandoned amusement park. A flashback reveals C2 gave Mao his Geass as a child, and he's seen her as his everything ever since. The sweet talk turns to terror when he shoots C2 multiple times and pulls out a chainsaw to cut her into pieces, claiming she's too big for them to run away together. It's at this moment that Lelouch's plan kicks in. He projects his image onto a large screen and taunts Mao, saying he knows C2's real name and that she belongs to him. While Mao freaks out and destroys the screen, the police arrive. The twist? Lelouch used his Geass on the police and broadcast his own thoughts into their heads, making them believe Mao was a target. With Mao distracted, Lelouch rescues C2, and the police gun down the villain.
Try the moment you die.
Lelouch, wait! If I talk to him, I can get through!
He's the terrorist you want! Fire!
In the end, on a rooftop, Lelouch and C2 make a new pact. He promises he won't be consumed by Geass like Mao, and that he will master this power. A new contract is sealed, and their partnership becomes stronger than ever. The Gurren Mach 2 is back, souped up and ready for action, with Callan taking it for a test drive. Meanwhile, the Black Knights are turning into a mega corporation, with 14 branches and total control over Japan's warehouses. Some members have been arrested, but they're such small fries that Britannia can't get any useful information out of them. Zero's business is booming, but not everything is perfect. Lelouch sends a disguised C2 to a meeting with the Chinese Federation, unaware that Mao, the mind-reading psychopath, is not only alive, but also nearby. In a flashback, we see Lelouch, Nunnally, and Suzaku fleeing during the invasion. The scene is grim, filled with bodies, and Suzaku panics. Back in the present, Lelouch and Suzaku are skipping class, and their conversation nearly reveals that Suzaku is the pilot of the Lancelot. The piece is shattered when Nunnally is kidnapped by Mao, who shows up wrapped in bandages like a mummy. He calls Lelouch and gives him 5 hours to find her. No police, or it's over. To make matters worse, Millie is on an arranged date with none other than Lloyd, who is so awkward he just wants to skip the small talk and get married to end the boredom. Lelouch and Suzaku team up for an action movie-worthy rescue mission. They discover Nunnally is in the sewers, and Suzaku even pulls off some acrobatics to disable a machine gun. They find her trapped with a motion-activated bomb. One wrong move, and everything blows. Lelouch goes up to confront Mao in a chapel, where Mao proposes a twisted game of chess. Whoever captures the most pieces wins. If Mao wins, the bomb explodes. If Lelouch wins, it's disarmed. The problem is, Mao is reading Lelouch's mind and wiping the floor with him. Desperate, Lelouch resigns, but the bomb doesn't go off. Suzaku had already disarmed it. How? The twist. Lelouch used his Geass on himself via a reflection to forget the order he gave Suzaku. It was a 4D chess move that Mao couldn't predict. When Suzaku takes Mao down, the villain drops one last bombshell. He reveals that it was Suzaku who killed his own father. It was a secret buried to stop the war. Suzaku completely breaks down. Furious, Lelouch uses his Geass on Mao to make him never speak again.
Mao! Never speak again! No!
The villain flees and runs right into C2, who executes him in cold blood. Right after the whole mess with Mao, the tension is thick. Suzaku is in shock, and Lelouch now knows his friend's dark secret. To break the tension, the school comes up with an art week, and Lelouch is forced to pose as the thinker statue. Meanwhile, Euphemia is at an art event and gets outraged when she sees an incredible painting disqualified just because the artist was an 11. She's clearly fed up with Britannia's racism. On the other side of things, the Black Knights get reinforcements, but there's bad news. The legendary Todo has been captured. Lelouch, being the master strategist he is, hatches a rescue plan on the spot. He now sees Todo, the Knights, and even Suzaku as his new chess pieces. Cornelia leaves Euphemia in charge while she goes off to war, even giving her a list of nobles to choose her knight from. Little does she know what her little sister is about to pull. Suzaku's mission? To be Todo's executioner. The plot twist: Todo was the master who taught Suzaku how to fight. The rescue operation kicks off with the new Gekka nightmares tearing everything apart. Zero and Callan storm the prison and free Todo. Zero delivers an epic motivational speech, convincing the warrior to fight for victory instead of dying for a lost cause. Then, the Lancelot shows up. Zero, who's been studying his enemy's moves, coordinates the attack. In a brilliant maneuver, Todo manages to rip the Lancelot's cockpit out, revealing the pilot to everyone. Suzaku Kururugi, everyone is floored. Zero freezes. Callan doesn't know what to do.
No way. Is that really you, Suzaku?
At the museum, the racist crowd starts booing Suzaku for not finishing off the other 11s. Euphemia, furious at the sight, makes an impulsive decision and declares right then and there in front of everyone that Suzaku will be her knight. Lelouch's plan has just gone up in smoke. His best friend is now his greatest enemy. The scene cuts to Lelouch having a maniacal laughing fit, completely unhinged by the turn of events. Aboard a submarine, Zero reorganizes the Black Knights like a CEO. Todo is made military chief. Dethard handles propaganda, and Oji becomes the vice commander. Callan now leads the Zero Squad, his personal elite unit. With Suzaku's new status, the first controversy hits the board. Dethard wants to assassinate him, claiming he's become a dangerous symbol. Ogi and Todo are against it. Lelouch is caught in the middle, admitting to C2 that his pride and friendship are stopping him from simply using Geass on Suzaku. Meanwhile, Suzaku's knighting ceremony is a festival of awkwardness. The Britannian nobles whisper racist insults as he walks by. Only Lloyd and Darlton applaud sincerely, forcing the others to follow suit. At a school party, Callan tries to kill Suzaku with a hidden knife, but Lelouch stops her at the last second. To add to the chaos, Lloyd publicly announces that he and Millie are engaged, leaving her mortified and Revel devastated. The main plot moves to Shikine Island, where the Black Knights lay a trap to capture Suzaku. Zero lures his friend into an ambush, where a device created by Rakshata shuts down both their nightmares. Trapped, Zero tries once more more to recruit Suzaku, arguing that reforming the system from within is an illusion. The situation escalates from 0 to 100 when a Britannian commander calls Suzaku and orders him to hold Zero in place for a missile strike, a suicide mission. Euphemia finds out, steals a nightmare, and rushes to stop the madness. As the missiles are launched, a massive mysterious ship, the Avalon, appears out of nowhere and blocks the attack. The pilot is none other than Prince Schneizel. Without warning, he fires a gigantic cannon. The screen whites out with the explosion, which seems to wipe Zero, Suzaku, Callan, and Euphemia off the map.
You stubborn fool!
Suzaku wakes up on a deserted, lost-style island with no idea where he is. Meanwhile, Zero is also wandering around the same place, completely lost. The most awkward moment of the series happens when Suzaku, looking for water, stumbles upon Cowan bathing in a waterfall. She spots him, tries to cover up, and in the process, reveals she's a Black Knight. Cowan attacks him, but Suzaku, after the initial shock, manages to immobilize and restrain her. On the other side of the island, Zero finds Euphemia, who drops the bomb. She's figured out that he's Lelouch. Stunned, he removes his mask, and she cries with joy. Back in civilization, no one in Britannia knows where the four of them are. Schneizel, the sinister older brother, takes command and shows he's not messing around. He reveals he fired on the island without caring if Suzaku survived. Meanwhile, at the bottom of the sea, the Black Knights are hiding in a submarine, arguing about what to do. Deathard wants to find Zero at all costs, since he's the soul of their operation, while Toto thinks it's too risky. At night, it's time for a heart-to-heart mortal enemy style. Suzaku and Callan trade barbs, and he ends up confessing that he killed his own father. Meanwhile, Lelouch and Euphemia have a nostalgic moment, reminiscing about the past. Suddenly, searchlights appear. Everyone runs toward the same spot, and they all meet up. Lelouch, to keep up appearances, pretends Euphemia is his hostage. In the middle of the confusion, a giant Geass symbol appears on the ground, and the floor collapses, throwing everyone into a secret cave. Inside, Lelouch and Callan waste no time. They steal the Gawain, a prototype nightmare that, to everyone's surprise, can fly. They escape.
We're flying? This nightmare can fly!
But their joy is short-lived. Suzaku is arrested for insubordination. The big reveal comes in a flashback. Lelouch had used his Geass on Suzaku with the order, "Live," which is why he survived the explosion. The Chinese Federation decides to crash the party, with a former Japanese politician named Sawasaki leading an invasion. The Black Knights swear they have nothing to do with it. While the war is raging, the personal drama doesn't stop. Suzaku, feeling guilty for killing his father and for freezing in battle, decides to resign as Euphemia's knight. She is, of course, devastated. In the midst of all this, Zero reveals his megalomaniacal plan to the Black Knights, to establish an independent nation of Tokyo. Nobody dreams small in this anime. At a museum, Euphemia is having her own existential crisis, feeling useless. She ends up bumping into Nina, who is her #1 fan. The two connect over their shared low self-esteem, and this conversation gives Euphemia a brilliant idea. Back on the battlefield, Suzaku is piloting the Lancelot, now equipped with a float system, and putting on a clinic against the Chinese forces. Sawasaki tries to unnerve him by taunting him about his father. Just as the Lancelot is about to run out of energy and Suzaku is surrounded, something surreal happens. Euphemia hijacks everyone's comms and makes the most public declaration of love in history, telling Suzaku she loves him and that he shouldn't hate himself. When it looked like Suzaku was going to die anyway, Zero and C2 show up in the Gawain and save the day. The bromance is back, and Zero and Suzaku fight side by side to defeat Sawasaki.
Sawasaki, that's far enough.
Impossible!
In the end, with victory secured, Euphemia and Suzaku are reunited. She tells him she no longer wants an ideal country. She just wants to see the people she loves happy, and asks him to be her knight and basically her boyfriend. He accepts, and we get our rom-com ending in the middle of a war. After nearly dying on an island, Lelouch and Suzaku return to their routine of doing overdue school assignments. Meanwhile, the annual Ashford Academy Festival is underway, the most chaotic event of all time. Millie, the student council president, forces Lelouch to help build a giant 12-meter pizza. The real trouble starts when Ogi brings Valletta, still suffering from amnesia, to the festival. Callan runs into them and is completely shocked. From there, it turns into a sitcom episode. Lelouch, Callan, Ogi, Valletta, C2, who just wanted pizza, Suzaku, and Shirley all end up crammed into a tiny room, each trying to hide a secret from the others. To solve the problem, Lelouch uses his favorite tactic. He creates a diversion with colored smoke, and everyone manages to escape. Amidst the chaos, Euphemia is also at the festival, in disguise. She finds Nunnally, and the two reminisce about their childhood. The festival's climax is the giant pizza making, with Suzaku piloting an old nightmare, the Ganymede. But a gust of wind blows Euphemia's hat off, revealing her identity to the crowd. Total chaos ensues. Suzaku rescues her with the Ganymede, and taking advantage of the media attention, Euphemia makes a nationwide announcement. She proposes the creation of the Specially Administrated Zone of Japan, a place where 11s could once again be called Japanese and live in equality. And to top it off, she invites Zero to work with her. The crowd goes wild, but for Lelouch, it's a disaster. Euphemia's plan is so good that it completely destroys the Black Knight's reason for existing. He's in a corner. If he accepts, his rebellion is over. If he refuses, he becomes the enemy of the people. Checkmate. Preparations for the stadium in the Specially Administrated Zone of Japan are in full swing, but the Britannian suits are already suspicious that Euphemia has switched sides and allied with Zero. They even plan to arrest the princess, but are stopped by Darlton, who wants to use the ceremony as bait for the Black Knights. Meanwhile, Suzaku and Euphemia are at the stadium, now officially a couple, and the mood is one of pure hope, with 200,000 Japanese signing up for the program. The news spreads. Nunnally watches happily, Nina hides away, and Lelouch is pissed to learn that even his allies in Kyoto are backing the idea. Prince Schneisel reveals that he supported the plan precisely to put Zero in a bind. The Black Knights are also divided. Many want to join the zone, as they trust a princess more than a masked superhero. Ogi himself, thinking of Valletta, suggests supporting the zone to keep the people on their side. Lelouch, for his part, runs into a Britannian noble humiliating a Japanese boy. Our anti-hero doesn't let it slide, using his Geass on the noble's henchman and nearly making the rich guy jump off a building.
Schoolboy, just back off.
I think you should go home right now.
Yeah, okay, I will. Well, I better get going.
Shirley sees the scene and is confused. Why would he help a Japanese person, but seem to be against Euphemia? Later, Lelouch finally goes to meet the princess. He turns off the cameras, removes his mask, and pulls out a gun. The plan is brilliant and twisted. He'll make Euphemia shoot him in front of everyone, turning him into a martyr and her into a villain. But suddenly, Lelouch's Geass starts to go out of control, and C2 feels it from afar. Euphemia, unaware, drops a bombshell. She has given up her right to the throne, all for him and Nunnally. Lelouch is stunned. She has defeated him with kindness. He accepts her offer, and the two even joke about the situation. He comments as a joke that he could have ordered her to do anything, like kill all the Japanese. And at that exact moment, his Geass glitches out completely and becomes permanently active, turning the joke into a real command. Euphemia tries to fight the order but can't. She grabs the gun and walks onto the stage. Before a confused crowd, she orders the soldiers to kill every Japanese person present. The massacre begins. Zero is horrified. But a dying old woman grabs his cape, calling him a messiah. Left with no choice, he puts the mask back on, declares the zone was a trap, and with tears in his eyes gives the order, kill Euphemia. Euphemia, completely possessed by Geass, leads the mass through the streets, and her soldiers obey without question. For the Black Knights and the Japanese people, the proof is clear. It was all a cruel trap. Fury takes over and they retaliate with everything they have, turning the slaughter into open warfare. Suzaku desperately tries to find Euphemia in the chaos. Callan manages to disable the princess's nightmare, who recognizes and insults her. As Callan is about to deliver the final blow, Zero appears in the Gowan and tells her to stop. With his nightmare's mechanical claws, C2 tears Euphemia's machine to pieces. The princess emerges from the wreckage, grabs a machine gun, and starts firing at the Gowan. When she runs out of ammo, Zero steps out of the cockpit. Delirious, Euphemia asks if he wants to build the special zone with her. Zero just walks past her, thinking he would have liked that, and pulls out a gun. At that exact moment, Suzaku arrives and sees the scene. Zero fatally shoots Euphemia.
Lelouch, why?
Farewell, Yuffie.
thinking to himself that she might have been the first person he ever truly loved. Suzaku is consumed by hatred, dodging attacks from C2 and Callan, retrieving Euphemia's body, and taking her to the Avalon. On her deathbed, her love for Suzaku is so strong that she manages to break the Geass for a moment. With no memory of the massacre, she asks if the ceremony was a success. To spare her, Suzaku lies, telling her it was. Euphemia dies happily in his arms. The news drives Cornelia and Nina completely mad with grief. Seizing the moment, Zero gives a fiery speech, declaring Euphemia a symbol of Britannia's hypocrisy and announcing the independence of Area 11. A new nation is born, the United States of Japan. Later, Lelouch vents to C2, breaking down as he remembers Euphemia's death. Meanwhile, the mysterious boy from Kamine Island, V2, appears before a shattered Suzaku and offers to tell him the truth about Geass. The episode ends with Zero initiating the final phase of his plan, the Black Rebellion, an all-out invasion of Tokyo. Remember Jeremiah? He's back, only now he's part cyborg, part maniac, thanks to Schneisel's experiments. His new mission, hunt down C2. The Black Rebellion begins with a dirty trick from Zero. He had already used his Geass on several guards to sabotage Tokyo's defensive walls from the inside. At midnight, everything comes crashing down, taking a large part of the Britannian army with it and clearing the way for the attack. Cornelia swears revenge, and all hell breaks loose. Toto faces off against Guilford in a sword fight between giant robots. Zero announces that Ashford Academy will be his command center. The excuse is its strategic location, but the real reason is to protect Nunnally. To convince the students, Callan reveals her identity as a Black Knight, leaving everyone jaw-dropped. Meanwhile, Suzaku, blind with hatred and manipulated by V2, who told him about Geass, gets into the Lancelot and becomes a killing machine, breaking his vow not to take lives. He goes after Callan, but Zero interrupts the fight.
Out of my way!
He lures Suzaku into a trap and uses a Gefion disturber to paralyze the Lancelot. Checkmate. Elsewhere, Valletta regains her memory, remembers being tricked by Ogi, and shoots him in cold blood. She flees, and the Black Knight's command orders her found and killed. In the midst of the chaos, Zero moves in for the final confrontation with Cornelia. The fight is insane, but Zero had an ace up his sleeve. He had used his Geass on Darlton back at the stadium with a secret order to incapacitate Cornelia at the right moment. The plan works. Darlton betrays his commander, and Zero eliminates him right after. With victory nearly secured, Zero is about to capture Cornelia, but the tables turn tragically. As the chaos unfolds, the mysterious V2 appears in Nunnally's room and kidnaps her right under everyone's noses. With Cornelia broken on the floor, Zero appears and takes off his mask, revealing he is Lelouch. She's not even surprised. She'd already figured his hatred for the royal family, and his obsession with Nunnally could only lead to this. But when Lelouch says he's going to create a better world, she accuses him of killing Clovis and Euphemia. He retorts that she killed Marion, and then comes the bombshell. She doesn't deny it, but says it was Marion herself who ordered the guards to be dismissed. Lelouch uses his Geass and discovers it's true. The only clue is that Schneisel took the body. Suddenly, C2 warns him that Nunnally has been kidnapped and taken to Kamine Island. And who shows up in the middle of the chaos? Jeremiah, orange, in a giant ship, ready to finally kill Zero. While C2 holds the maniac off, Lelouch tries to call everyone looking for Nunnally, but it's all bad news. Ogi's been shot and his friends from the student council have been captured. To make matters worse, Nina appears with an old nightmare, threatening to blow up all of Tokyo if they don't hand over Zero. The girl has completely lost it.
Zero, where is he? Tell me where he is! Princess Euphemia will be avenged! Where is Zero?
On Kamine Island, Lelouch and C2 fall into a psychic trap. Lelouch gets glimpses of C2's past, seeing her die in different eras. He understands the weight of her immortality, and, in a moment of pure connection, declares that if she is a witch, then he will be a warlock. It's beautiful, but it's short-lived. Jeremiah, who survived having a building dropped on him, returns to the fight. C2 decides to sacrifice herself. She gives Lelouch a farewell kiss, shoves him onto the island, and throws herself into the sea with Jeremiah. Without its leader, the Black Rebellion crumbles. Alone, Lelouch finally confronts Suzaku, who now knows about Geass. In front of Callan, Suzaku shatters Zero's mask, revealing Lelouch's identity. Callan is in shock. The argument becomes a massive airing of dirty laundry, with both of them throwing their traumas in each other's faces. The tension explodes. Lelouch and Suzaku point their guns at each other. A single gunshot rings out. The screen goes black. A year has passed since the Black Rebellion. C2 is with the remnants of the Black Knights, planning a comeback aboard an orange airship. Meanwhile, in what feels like an alternate universe, Lelouch is back to being just another student at Ashford Academy. He spends his days bored, skipping class, and living with his younger brother, a boy named Rollo. He remembers nothing, not being Zero, not Nunnally, and he thinks the revolutionary leader was just some idiot. The world outside is a mess, with the Japanese being oppressed by the new viceroy, Calaris. Bored with his life, Lelouch takes Rollo to the Tower of Babel, a giant casino where even illegal fights take place. There, he bumps into a waitress in a bunny outfit who is actually Callan in disguise. He doesn't recognize her, and she fails to plant a tracker on him. To spice up the evening, Lelouch challenges a mob boss to a game of chess, and of course, wins. The mobster doesn't take defeat well and attacks, but that's when the real party starts. C2's airship appears, and the Black Knights storm the tower to rescue Lelouch. Callan manages to grab him, but Rollo appears and separates them in the chaos. Lelouch ends up falling into a pit and lands in a room full of bodies. There, he finds C2 again, but Britannian soldiers appear and shoot her, revealing that Lelouch was just bait. Seeing C2 dead in his arms, Lelouch despairs, but she wakes up, plants a kiss on him, and boom! All his memories come flooding back, along with his Geass. Zero is reborn. With a single command, he makes all the soldiers kill themselves.
Lelouch v. Britannia commands you. All of you, die!
On the other side of the world, Suzaku, now one of Britannia's elite knights, swears he will kill Zero personally. First, a flashback to help us understand the mess. On Kamime Island, Suzaku didn't kill Lelouch. He captured him and took him straight to his dear father, Emperor Charles. As a reward for turning in his friend, Suzaku asked to join the elite knights of the round. The Emperor, who has a bizarre Geass in both eyes, simply rewrote Lelouch's mind, erasing Nunnally, Marianne, and Zero, and planting the memory of a fake brother, Rollo. It was a total reset. Back in the present, the battle at the Tower of Babel rages on. Callan, suspicious, corners Lelouch and asks if her loyalty is just another Diaz trick. He denies it, saying the choice to follow him was always hers. The moment is interrupted when Viceroy Calaris sends an entire army to crush them. To make matters worse, a new golden nightmare, the Vincent, appears out of nowhere. It's a version 2 of the Lancelot and starts wrecking everything. The Vincent's pilot almost gets Lelouch, but Urabe, one of the 4 holy swords, sacrifices himself to save him, making Lelouch promise to carry the hopes of the people forward. With a heavy heart, Lelouch activates his master plan. He detonates a series of bombs that cause an entire floor of the tower to collapse, crushing Calaris and his whole army. With the enemy in shock, Zero hacks every screen in the country. He announces his triumphant return and the creation of the United States of Japan, broadcasting directly from the Chinese Federation's embassy. And to end the episode with that classic suspense, we find out who's piloting the Vincent, his little brother Rollo. The cherry on top? He has a Geass too. The fight just got personal. Just as Rollo is about to activate his Geass, his phone rings, and he stops everything to answer, making Shinkei's troops suspicious. On the other end of the line is Lelouch, asking if he's okay. This confuses Rollo, who instantly realizes the Zero giving the speech on TV is an imposter. But before he can process it, Valletta grabs the phone and informs him that Lelouch has gone back to school to make up some classes. Utterly lost, Rollo dismisses Shinkei and puts away the phone, which now has that locket from before. Later, we learn the trick. The person in the Zero costume was C2, using a voice modulator. Callan is annoyed by all the secrets, but C2 throws it in her face that, in reality, she's the only one who cares, probably because of her little crush on Lelouch. The next day, Lelouch is the student council's gopher, and Millie isn't cutting him any slack. He complains, but she explains that Rival has no taste and Shirley is a disaster in the kitchen. Lelouch realizes the party is for him and Rollo, making him even more confused. That's when it hits him. No one remembers Nunnally. He understands that Suzaku not only turned him in, but also wiped the memories of all his friends to create this false reality, which fills Lelouch with rage. Meanwhile, we discover that Rollo is part of a secret team, along with Valletta, that has been spying on Lelouch the whole time. But Lelouch, who is no fool, has already mapped out all the cameras and devises a plan to turn the spies into his own pawns. Over in Europe, Suzaku is in full berserker mode, annihilating an entire army single single-handedly with the Lancelot. Schneisel, his superior, watches it all, remarking on how Suzaku's madness can be useful. Back at school, Lelouch sees the locket on Rollo and realizes it was Nunnally's. He tries to get it back, but Rollo becomes super protective. Later, Rollo and Valletta are at their secret base when an agent accidentally walks in. Without a second thought, Rollo activates his Geass, which freezes the perception of time for everyone around him and kills the guy in cold blood.
Wait for orders! There's a chance he overheard us. Knowledge of
To make matters worse, Guilford surrounds the consulate and issues an ultimatum. Either Zero surrenders, or all the captured Black Knights will be executed. Lelouch then uses a meeting with Shirley as a front to escape surveillance, cause chaos at a shopping mall, and corner Rollo in the spy room. He points a gun at his brother's head, but suddenly, an explosion rocks the Chinese consulate. It seems Shinkei has betrayed them all. The scene flashes back to show Rollo being trained as an assassin since childhood. His current mission was to pose as Lelouch's brother and, if his memories returned, to eliminate him. Back in the present, Lelouch figures out that Rollo's Geass doesn't stop time, only people's perception of it. With his usual silver tongue, he turns the tables and makes a deal. He'll hand over C2 to Rollo and ensure he stays alive in exchange for the boy's loyalty. Meanwhile, at the consulate, Shinkei kills General Gao Hai in cold blood, blaming the Black Knights to create an excuse to attack. The day of the execution arrives. Guilford is ready to give the order, and despair grips the Japanese population. Tamaki still has faith that Zero will show up, but Chiba has already lost hope. And then, when all seems lost, Zero appears in his old nightmare, a very weak model. Alone, he challenges Guilford to a one-on-one duel. Callan and C2 are worried, as Lelouch isn't a skilled pilot, but Zero accepts the fight and sets the rules. No reinforcements, and only one weapon each. The fight seems suicidal, with Zero using only a shield. Guilford charges, but Zero reveals his ace. He had used his Geass on an officer to activate a trap, the same one from the Black Rebellion. The ground beneath everyone's feet collapses, turning the battlefield into a chasm. The Britannian soldiers begin to fall, and Zero declares that they are now on his territory. The Black Knights are freed and the battle begins. In the chaos, Rollo appears in his advanced nightmare, the Vincent, and attacks Zero, thinking he's been betrayed. But when a sniper takes aim at Rollo, Zero throws himself in front of the shot, sacrificing his nightmare. Shocked, Rollo asks why. Lelouch replies that even if they aren't brothers by blood, the memories they share make them family. This hits Rollo right where he's most vulnerable, as all he ever wanted was to be loved. In the end, we discover it was all part of Lelouch's plan. He used his Geass on the sniper to create this exact situation and win Rollo's loyalty. With a devilish grin, Lelouch thinks to himself that he'll use Rollo and then discard him. To wrap things up, Suzaku shows up at Ashford Academy in his uniform. That same night, the Black Knights celebrate their freedom. Meanwhile, Lelouch and Callan have a tense conversation, with him flirting to dodge her questions about the mysterious pilot of the Vincent, Rollo. Later, Zero appears before the Knights. Some, like Chiba, are furious that he abandoned them during the rebellion, but Toto and Oji defend their leader, saying only he can lead them to victory. The troops' morale is restored. The next day, the big surprise, Suzaku is back at Ashford Academy. The mood is heavy, as everyone knows him as Britannia's infamous White Reaper, but Lelouch is forced to act like they're best friends. During lunch, the council members try to get Suzaku to reveal Zero's identity, but he dodges the questions. Soon after, we learn that Suzaku is working with Valletta and Rollo to monitor Lelouch. However, Lelouch, using information given to him by Rollo, has already used his Geass on almost all the spies, turning them into his servants. To complicate things, two more knights of the round arrive. Gino, a good-natured and somewhat naive noble, and Anya, a quiet girl who just takes pictures of everything. Their plan? To kill Lelouch. The school holds a festival, and chaos ensues. C2, obsessed with pizza, shows up in the middle of the event. To hide her, Lelouch throws her into a giant tomato box. At the same time, Callan disguises herself in a plush mascot costume to rescue the pizza girl. The situation turns into a crazy chase when Gino steals the Ganymede Nightmare to make the world's largest pizza, carrying the box with C2 inside. The chase ends with Lelouch activating a pink smoke bomb that makes everyone a little loopy and out of it, allowing him, C2, and Cowan to escape. Later, Lelouch and Rollo corner Valletta. Knowing about her affair with Ogi, Lelouch blackmails her into joining the Black Knights. At night, Lelouch is on the roof when Suzaku appears. He reveals reveals his goal, to become the Knight of One to gain control of Area 11 and destroy Zero once and for all. To shock him even more, he tells Lelouch he should discuss his plans with the new Viceroy of Area 11 and forces him to take a call. On the other end of the line, Lelouch hears a familiar voice and his world comes crashing down. It's Nunnally, greeting him cheerfully, completely oblivious. Suzaku uses Nunnally as bait during a phone call, trying to force Lelouch to surrender. It's the kind of dirty move only a desperate villain would pull. But just as Lelouch is about to panic, Rollo appears and uses his Geass on Suzaku, like hitting the pause button on the universe for a few seconds.
This is my brother, isn't it?
I can't do this. I can't lie to Nunnally.
In that window, Lelouch manages to talk to Nunnally. It's a quick, emotional conversation. I'm alive, I love you, but we have to pretend we don't know each other, or I'm toast. It's straight out of a spy movie. As soon as Rollo's Geass wears off, Lelouch pretends Nunnally made a mistake and Suzaku, completely clueless, falls for it hook, line, and sinker. Soon after, we find out Nunnally is in Britannia, on a fancy airship, and is set to be the new Viceroy. Meanwhile, Zero and the Black Knights have already bailed from the Chinese Federation consulate. Seeing that Suzaku and the Emperor are using his sister as a pawn, Lelouch decides he has to act. The plan? Capture Nunnally to actually save her. A massive battle begins. The Black Knights come in hot, but the Britannian army isn't messing around. Zero storms the main ship to find Nunnally, and she, not knowing he's her brother, asks if he's come to kill her like he did Euphemia. What a knife to the heart. To make it worse, she reveals that she chose to be Viceroy to re-establish the specially administrated zone. The fight outside gets insane. Cowan is putting on a show, but Suzaku appears with a souped-up Lancelot, the Lancelot Conquista. He wrecks Callan's Gurren, but just when all seems lost, Rakshata sends a special delivery straight from a submarine, a flight upgrade for the Gurren. With the new gear, Callan turns the tide. In the middle of the chaos, Suzaku storms the ship, grabs Nunnally, and flees seconds before everything explodes, leaving Lelouch behind, screaming his sister's name in pure desperation. After that humiliating defeat, Lelouch sinks into a deep depression. He's lost Nunnally again, and to make matters worse, she's become the face of the cause he despises most. To complete the trifecta of misery, Nunnally announces on national television that she is indeed going to re-establish the specially administrated zone of Japan. This is the trigger for Lelouch to completely snap. He hangs up on Callan, smashes his phone, and disappears, abandoning the Black Knights and his role as Zero. He's so far gone that he almost uses Refrain, a powerful drug. But then Callan shows up to give him a reality check. She slaps him across the face and reminds him that, as Zero, he carries the dreams of an entire people. Even if he has to lie, they need their leader back. Soon after, Rollo appears with the opposite advice, telling him to drop everything and go back to being a normal student. It's the angel and devil on his shoulders. The turning point comes from where he least expects it, his school friends. They canceled a trip to stay and cheer him up with fireworks. That simple gesture makes Lelouch remember an old conversation with Suzaku and Nunnally about happiness. He realizes he's not just fighting for his sister, but for everyone he loves. His spirit renewed, he returns in the nick of time. The Black Knights are cornered by Suzaku's fleet, about to become fish food. Out of nowhere, Zero's voice comes over the comms. Using a brilliant strategy, Lelouch detonates methane hydrate deposits on the seafloor, creating giant bubbles that capsize Suzaku's entire fleet without a single casualty. After that display, Zero appears and drops the bombshell. He will join the special zone. Everyone is like, what? Zero's decision to join the special administrative zone leaves the Black Knights in utter disarray, but he has a master plan. He convinces 1 million Japanese people to register for the zone under one condition. In exchange, Zero himself must be exiled from Japan. It looks like a total surrender, and Suzaku, though suspicious, accepts the deal. The day of the ceremony arrives. 1 million people have gathered. The Britannian representative Lohmeyer announces that the criminal Zero will be exiled. That's when the show begins. Zero hacks the large screens and speaks directly to Suzaku. Then, in the blink of an eye, all 1 million Japanese in the audience reveal they are wearing Zero's costume. It's an army of Zeros.
All of them.
The logic is brilliant and foolproof, in the classic I am Spartacus style. If they are all zero, then they all must be exiled. They aren't surrendering. They're achieving a mass liberation, carrying Japan in their hearts wherever they go. A giant iceberg-like ship appears to take them all, courtesy of the Chinese Federation. Suzaku is backed into a corner. The Britannian military wants to open fire on everyone, but he can't bring himself to give the order, haunted by the memory of Euphemia's massacre. When Lohmeyer tries to shoot on her own, Suzaku stops her. He is forced to let the mass exile happen. In the end, Lelouch, who was on the ship the whole time, watches the crowd board. He won. He managed to free 1 million people without firing a single shot, using Britannia's own laws against them. From the ground, Suzaku understands the play. Even as mortal enemies, for a fleeting moment, they were on the same page. It was a peaceful and spectacular checkmate. C2 narrates that the Chinese Federation is the most populous country in the world, but its government is a mess. Empress Tianzi is just a child, so the ones truly in charge are the high eunuchs, tyrants who rule over the people as an oligarchy. Meanwhile, the Black Knights have set up their base on an artificial Chinese island, with the permission of these same eunuchs. Zero meets with them and General Shinkei to seal a peace treaty, but the deal has some very suspicious fine print. Back in the present, the Black Knights are settling in. Tamaki, clueless as ever, cracks a joke about the eunuchs not having testicles and gets chewed out for it. Soon after, the new nightmares arrive. The Akatsuki models, on loan from India, which also wants to get rid of its oppressors. Todo gets the Zangetsu, and Zero gets the Shinkiro, an upgraded version of the Gawain. In a quiet moment, Callan and Lelouch are working together. She's on a small stool, and he's kneeling below, fixing some wires. There's a spark between them, and she starts thinking about how much he's changed since Shinjuku. Lelouch notices and asks what's wrong. Startled, she slips and falls on top of him, nearly leading to a kiss. They're both in shock. Callan, still on top of him, asks why he came back. He begins to answer that it's for the same reason he wants to return to Ashford with her when it's all over, but C2 appears out of nowhere, looking for hot sauce for her pizza and completely shattering the mood. Moments later, Kaguya summons everyone. Empress Tianzi is being forced to marry Prince Odysseus of Britannia. Zero's plan to kidnap the Empress has gone up in smoke, and he realizes the mastermind behind it all is Schneisel. Later, at the pre-wedding party, the atmosphere is tense. Suzaku is there, and Gino shows up with a potato sculpture. Unsure if he's supposed to eat it, Schneisel arrives with Nina as his date, shocking everyone. Elsewhere, Shinkei, Tianzi's loyal guard, plans to stop the wedding, remembering a promise he made to her. Suddenly, Kaguya arrives at the party accompanied by none other than Zero, with Callan as his bodyguard. The game has begun. Zero challenges Schneisel to a game of chess, but Nina freaks out and tries to stab Zero, only to be stopped by Suzaku. In the midst of the chaos, the wedding ceremony begins. Shinkei crashes the event to save Tianzi, but as he gets close, a curtain falls, revealing Zero holding the Empress with a gun to her head.
I appreciate this, Shinkei. You've made it so much easier for me to make my move.
The wedding hall erupts into pandemonium. Todo, in his new Zangetsu, squares off against Suzaku in the Lancelot. As the two clash in the air, Zero, Kaguya, and Empress Tianzi escape in a container, which is loaded onto a truck driven by C2. During the getaway, Zero explains his plan to Tianzi to unite the Chinese Federation and other nations into a massive coalition against Britannia and end the eunuch's tyranny. The truck reaches a cliff with a destroyed bridge. It looks like the end of the line, but it was all a trap for their enemies. Akatsuki troops emerge and surround the eunuch's forces. However, the eunuchs have an ace up their sleeve. They release Shinkei and give him a new nightmare, the Shenhu, to retrieve Tianzi. Shinkei appears and all hell breaks loose. Callan in the Gurren goes after him, but her energy runs out mid-fight. Shinkei seizes the opportunity, captures Callan and the Gurren, and flees. With Callan captured and the full might of the Chinese army bearing down on them, Zero orders a retreat. Over the radio, he promises Callan he will rescue her, no matter what. Dethard thinks it's a terrible idea to risk everything for one person, but Zero doesn't care. He decides to go back to save Callan. The rescue attempt turns into a pitched battle. Zero proves to be a strategic genius, but Shinkei is even better, using the terrain's geography to flood the battlefield and track the Black Knight's nightmares in the mud. Defeated, Zero orders another retreat, this time to the sacred mausoleum of the 88 Emperors. They are cornered, with only one entrance. The situation worsens when Britannian forces, led by the Knights of the Round, join the assault. And to complete the nightmare, the High Eunuchs declare they will blow up the mausoleum with everyone inside, including Empress Tianzi herself. They couldn't care less. All they want are their noble titles in Britannia. Back at Ashford Academy, life goes on. Sayoko, disguised as Lelouch with a voice changer, keeps up appearances while the real Zero is in China. She and Rollo head down to the secret OSI room, where Valletta gives them an update on Zero's desperate situation, surrounded on all sides. Back at the mausoleum, the ground trembles. The eunuchs have begun their bombardment. In desperation, Tianzi runs to the deck of the Ikaruga and begs them to stop. Shinkei flies in to protect her with the Shen Hu, using the mech itself as a shield. That's when Zero makes his move with the Shen Kiro. His new nightmare has a defense system so absurd it deflects every shot as if it were nothing. After showing off, he fires a single beam that wipes the Chinese army off the map. Zero then makes his masterstroke. He broadcasts the conversation he had with the eunuchs to the entire nation. By exposing their treason and contempt for their own people, he incites a mass revolution across the country. With the people on his side, Schneisel sees no point in continuing and retreats, leaving the eunuchs completely exposed. Shinkei wastes no time. He finds the traitors and executes them. The alliance between the Black Knights and a new Chinese federation is sealed, but the joy is short-lived. Zero discovers that Cowan has been handed over to Suzaku. Meanwhile, at Ashford, Sayoko, still as Lelouch, panics when Shirley nearly discovers the secret OSI door. Her solution? She plants a kiss on Shirley to distract her. Shortly after, the real Lelouch returns to Japan, determined to rescue Callan and destroy the Geass order. He barely sets foot on campus before being met with a surprise. Gino and Anya, the Knights of the Round, are there, dressed in Ashford uniforms, claiming they've enrolled to enjoy the commoner life. Lelouch freezes, and Anya, of course, snaps a picture of the awkward moment.
Hey, we've been waiting for you. You're the vice president, right? This is an honor.
Don't be so formal.
Oh, right. Anyway,
The night begins with Lelouch discovering that his maid, Sayoko, who is actually a highly efficient ninja, has scheduled dates for him with 108 different girls to maintain his popular student cover. Poor Shirley is completely confused about whether they're a couple or not, while literally every other girl in school also has a date lined up with him. The guy's schedule is more packed than a pop star on a world tour. Lunch with one, a museum with another, shopping, a quick trip to India as Zero to sign a treaty, and then a movie with Shirley. To resolve this mess, Millie announces Cupid Day, an event where everyone has to swap hats with someone of the opposite sex to become a couple. Lelouch sees this as a golden opportunity to break up with all 108 suitors at once. Meanwhile, some heavy political drama is unfolding. Emperor Charles wants to invade China, and Cornelia, on her own, discovers the Geass order and that her own father is behind it all. As for Cowan, she's in prison but receives a surprise visit from Nunnally. The event kicks off and it's chaos. Rollo uses his Geass to help Lelouch escape, and Sayoko acts as his stunt double, putting on a show of ninja skills against the crowd trying to get his hat at Millie's command. In the midst of the confusion, Lelouch saves Shirley from Anya, who has joined the game in her nightmare. Shirley confronts him, and to save himself, Lelouch lies that he likes her. She sees through the lie but plays along, and they exchange hats, becoming the event's official couple. Everything seems resolved, but then Jeremiah enters the scene. He now possesses a Geass canceller, and starts reversing the effects of Lelouch's power throughout the city. Shirley is hit, and boom! All her memories come flooding back, that Lelouch is Zero, and that he killed her father. Shirley is completely freaking out after regaining her memories. She has a bizarre nightmare where everyone is wearing masks, symbolizing the secret identities and lies. Meanwhile, she arranges to meet Suzaku at a train station, but Lelouch also shows up, creating the most tense love triangle imaginable. Back at school, Jeremiah storms the campus looking like the Terminator, searching for Lelouch. Sayoko tries to fight him, but the guy is a cyborg with a Geass canceller and defeats both her and Rollo. The tension explodes on the station rooftop. Shirley, traumatized by the imaginary masks, backs away and ends up falling from the building. In a scene worthy of an action movie, Lelouch jumps and catches her, while Suzaku grabs Lelouch's foot. A true, forced team effort. Shortly after, Lelouch gets a call about Jeremiah and has to leave. leave. Shirley, wanting to help, drags Suzaku away, giving Lelouch a chance to deal with the problem. Lelouch lures Jeremiah into a trap with trains and uses technology to fry the cyborg circuits. He then reveals his true identity, Lelouch v. Britannia. Jeremiah, who is loyal to Lelouch's mother, Marianne, has an epiphany and immediately switches sides. New ally unlocked, but the victory is brief. Rollo, jealous and afraid of being replaced, finds Shirley alone. Wanting to help Lelouch, she mentions Nunnally, and this becomes Rollo's trigger. Lelouch finds Shirley on the ground, bleeding. In her final moments, she confesses that she forgave him and that she loves him. Lelouch, desperate, tries to use his Geass to force her to live, but it's too late. She dies in his arms, and he lets out a scream of pure agony and despair. Still grieving for Shirley, Lelouch listens to Rollo's confession that he killed her to protect him. Lelouch pretends everything is fine, but inside, he devises a new plan. Destroy the Geass order, and while he's at it, get revenge on Rollo. While Shirley's funeral takes place, with Lelouch absent, he calls C2 and declares his new mission to wipe Geass from the face of the earth, including Rollo and the order's leader, V2. And he wastes no time. Using information from Jeremiah, the Black Knights launch a surprise attack directly on the Geass order's base. Things take a dark turn when Rollo is forced to eliminate Geass-wielding children who considered him a brother. Little does he know, Lelouch has planted a bomb in his nightmare, planning to blow him up along with V2. Just when everything seems to be going according to plan, V2 appears, piloting the Siegfried, that bizarre giant nightmare. The situation gets so bad that even the escaped Cornelia joins forces with Zero to fight their crazy uncle. In an unlikely alliance, Zero and Cornelia bombard the Siegfried until it's destroyed. Meanwhile, C2 intercepts and eliminates the scientists trying to escape with the Geass research. V2, battered and beaten, flees to a secret chamber where he finds Emperor Charles. But instead of being saved, Charles betrays him, steals his immortality, and leaves him for dead. Shortly after, Lelouch arrives at this place, which is some kind of dimensional portal, and comes face to face with his father.
How was I pulled out of the Shinkiro? Where is this place? It's not an illusion or a hologram.
That is correct.
Charles stares him down and says the time for the final atonement has come, with a cosmic weapon called the Sword of Akasha in the background. The scale of the conflict has just skyrocketed. Lelouch is stunned to see Charles and hides behind the Shinkiro, asking again why he killed Marianne. Charles, full of himself, basically says that having Geass makes him superior and taunts him to use his own power to find out the truth. But Lelouch sees the trap. Since they both require eye contact, if he tries to use his Geass, he'll have his memory erased again. It's a standoff worthy of a Western. In a masterful move, Lelouch shatters glass everywhere, looks at one of the reflections, and gives the command, die. The Geass ricochets like a pool ball and hits Charles's eyes. But there's a catch. Charles now has a code, making him immortal and immune to Geass. Pretending it worked, he pulls out a gun, shoots himself in the chest, and collapses, just to mess with his son. Lelouch celebrates his victory, but the party doesn't last long. Meanwhile, Suzaku takes out his rage on Callan, and Ogi and Valletta have a heart-to-heart in the woods, which ends with Ogi confessing his love. The moment is shattered by Sayoko, the ninja maid who thinks Valletta is an enemy and attacks. In the confusion, Ogi throws himself in front of Valletta and takes a shower of kunai, falling off a cliff. Back at the main confrontation, Charles gets up as if nothing happened, revealing he stole the immortality code from V2 and is now basically a Highlander. He throws Lelouch into a bizarre dimension where C2 appears and reveals her greatest wish, to die. She explains that the plan was always to have one of her contractors become strong enough to take her code and kill her. Lelouch is shocked, but C2 is determined. However, at the last second, Lelouch refuses, destroys the place, and rescues her.
No, you ruined it all!
I know what it...
The problem? When C2 wakes up, she remembers nothing and asks, terrified, who he is. She's been reset to factory settings. With Charles missing, Lelouch, as Zero, seizes the opportunity and proposes the creation of the United Federation of Nations, basically an Avengers Assemble against Britannia. The plan is a success, and everyone is on board. Meanwhile, our hero's personal life has become a mess. C2 has lost her memory and now acts like a frightened servant. Lelouch has to explain everything to her again, including how to eat pizza pizza, in a scene that is both sad and comical. On the other side, the mood is grim. Suzaku, in another fit of madness, gets beaten up by Callan and doesn't fight back, showing just how broken he is. To make matters worse, a new Knight of the Round appears, Luciano Bradley, a psychopath who loves to kill and immediately starts provoking Suzaku. He's the kind of villain you love to hate, and as if that weren't enough, Nina wants to install Flea, a nuclear bomb capable of wiping cities off the map, in Suzaku's Lancelot. The recipe for disaster is complete. The UFN is officially formed, and its first act is to liberate Japan. The celebration barely begins before Charles, like a good horror movie villain, hacks the global broadcast to declare all-out war. Winner takes the world. Lelouch is desperate, not knowing how to defeat his father and save Nunnally at the same time. In a moment of weakness, he calls the one person who might understand him, but who is also his greatest enemy, Suzaku. He proposes a secret meeting to protect Nunnally. It's Batman calling the Joker for help. The battle for Tokyo begins, but Lelouch isn't on the battlefield. He's on his way to the Kurorugi to meet Suzaku, the place where their friendship began. Meanwhile, on the front lines, Luciano Bradley is wreaking havoc, and the powerful Bismarck enters the fray, showing that things just got serious. Lelouch and Suzaku's reunion is pure tension. Lelouch plays dirty and lies, taking the blame for everything. For Euphemia, for Shirley, all to convince Suzaku to protect Nunnally. He kneels and begs for forgiveness, a scene no one ever expected to see. Suzaku, in the midst of his madness, realizes Lelouch is lying to protect him, and for an instant, his old friend seems to return. He agrees to help, but on one condition, except it was a trap. Schneisel's troops appear and arrest Lelouch. Suzaku betrayed him.
You set me up from the start! No, wait! You've done a great deed here, Sir Kurorugi. Excellent work. You've managed to bring this war to an...
Or did he? In reality, this was Lelouch's trump card. He had already used his Geass on Guilford, who now believes Lelouch is Princess Cornelia and rescues him amidst the chaos. It's a plan worthy of the professor from Money Heist. Schneisel, who is no fool, immediately realizes Geass is in play. With his plan B in motion, Lelouch activates devices that cause a blackout across the entire city, neutralizing Britannia's defenses. The Ikaruga ship emerges from the water, and the Black Knights begin their real assault. Rollo is sent to rescue Nunnally, and Lelouch, with tears in his eyes, accepts that he must be cold and calculating to win. The final war is about to begin, with all players moving their most dangerous pieces on the board. Meanwhile, on the other side, Schneisel readies his army and asks if Suzaku can be deployed, since his Lancelot is immune to the blackout. The answer is that it depends on Suzaku's level of sanity, a fact Schneisel even laughs at, knowing the battlefield only makes him worse. The battle begins, and a deranged Suzaku threatens to use the Flea, that mega powerful weapon, on Zero, but Zero, still believing he was betrayed, doesn't buy it and sends Jeremiah to attack. And then comes the plot twist. Jeremiah, Orange, now fights out of loyalty to Zero. He and Guilford, who has also switched sides under Geass, go after Suzaku in a 2-on-1 fight. Gino arrives to save his friend, and the battle becomes even more chaotic. While the brawl rages on, Rollo's mission is to retrieve Nunnally, but he secretly plans to kill her to be Lelouch's only brother. At the same time, Sayoko manages to free Callan, who finds a little present, the Gurren, now upgraded to the Gurren Satan, a version that looks like it came straight out of an overpowered mecha anime. Callan gets in the machine and at incredible speed, tears across the battlefield. Destroying everything in her path. She saves Zero from Luciano, a villain who loves to monologue about death and throws his own words back in his face before incinerating him. Now it's Suzaku's turn. His Lancelot is no match for the new Gurren. Cowan dismantles his nightmare piece by piece. On the verge of death, the Liv Geass command Lelouch, placed on Suzaku, activates. Forced to survive at any cost, he fires the Flea. The missile flies directly toward the government building where Nunnally is and explodes, creating a massive pink energy sphere that erases everything from the map. Zero watches it all, paralyzed with horror, while Schneisel gives a satisfied villain's smirk. The news shows the scale of the disaster. The Flea killed 10 million people, and the Tokyo settlement is now a crater. Nina, the weapon's creator, finally understands the monstrosity she has made and has a breakdown. Suzaku, on the other hand, coldly accepts the blame. Zero is in complete shock, shouting nonsensical orders for Toto to search the rubble for Nunnally's body. He has completely lost his mind. Taking advantage of the chaos, Schneisel arrives at the Black Knight's ship for peace negotiations, but he's really there to sow the seeds of discord. Meanwhile, Lelouch is taken back to his room by Rollo. There, he sees Rollo's locket and snaps, thinking it was Nunnally's. He screams that he hates Rollo, that he never wanted to see him, and that he could never replace his sister. Rollo is utterly destroyed. At the meeting, Schneisel drops a bombshell on the Black Knights. He reveals that Zero is actually his younger brother, Lelouch v Britannia, and he doesn't stop there. He tells them about Geass, painting Lelouch as a manipulator who brainwashed everyone to get what he wanted. Ogi, accompanied by Valletta, confirms the story, betraying Zero for good. The Black Knights turn on their leader and corner him in a warehouse. Callan, heartbroken, asks Lelouch what she meant to him. Seeing Schneisel there, Lelouch embraces the role of the villain, takes off his mask, and says they were all just pawns, and she was an elite pawn. It's a stab in the heart, but he does it so she can live. As the knights are about to shoot, Rollo appears in the Shinkiro and rescues Lelouch. He uses his Geass repeatedly to stop everyone, pushing his heart to its limit. Rollo confesses that his time with Lelouch made him feel human, and that he was saving him of his own free will. Then, he dies.
I thought so. 'Cause I know who you really are inside your heart. I know everything about you, big brother.
Lelouch, now alone, buries the one he now calls his brother and finds a new reason to go on. Suzaku, now fully embracing his dark side, finds Nina and declares that Flea is the path to victory. He no longer has any doubts. Meanwhile, the grieving Lelouch deduces that Charles's true objective is Kamine Island and heads there alone. In the midst of all this, something bizarre happens. Anya has a Geass spasm, and suddenly the consciousness of Marianne, Lelouch's mother, which had been hosted inside her, manifests. She interacts with C2 and resets her mind, restoring all her memories. With Zero dead to the world, the Black Knights now follow Schneisel. Suzaku gets straight to the point with him. He wants to be the Knight of One. Schneisel, who is planning a coup against his own father, agrees immediately. He gives Suzaku the mission to assassinate Emperor Charles. Suzaku, who now only cares about results, accepts without blinking. At Kamine Island, Suzaku arrives to carry out his mission, but is stopped by Bismarck, the current Knight of One, who reveals he also has a Geass. The fight begins but is interrupted by Lelouch's chaotic arrival, which creates a distraction and allows Suzaku to escape. Lelouch's real target is his father. He confronts Charles inside the Sword of Akasha Temple, a mystical and powerful place, and to ensure no one interrupts the final reckoning, Lelouch destroys the entrance, trapping himself and the Emperor inside. Now it's just the two of them, ready for the confrontation that will decide the fate of the world. Suzaku wakes up to find Anya about to draw on his face, swearing up and down that she's Marianne. Meanwhile, on the Ikaruga, the Black Knight's leadership decides that Lelouch is finished, but Callan can't swallow it. She needs answers and takes off in her Gurren, determined to have one last conversation with her former boss. Inside the Sword of Akasha, Lelouch finally confronts his father, Charles, and gets straight to the point. Who killed my mother? Charles ironically remarks that Lelouch, the king of lies, now wants the truth. Lelouch retorts that everyone lies and wears masks to fit in, even the Emperor. But Charles has a crazy plan to end all that, the Ragnarok connection, which would basically force everyone to be 100% honest, like a global reset of hypocrisy. Outside, C2 explains to Suzaku that the place they're in is the world of C, the collective unconscious of humanity, like the cloud where all minds and memories are saved. It's in this realm that Marianne, using Anya's body as an avatar, is able to enter and finally reunite with Charles. Then comes the bombshell. Charles reveals that it wasn't terrorists who killed Marianne, but V2, his own brother. The reason? Jealousy, because Charles was changing for her. V2 set the whole thing up, shot Marianne, and even used Nunnally as a false witness, erasing her memory with Geass, which also made her blind. Lelouch and Nunnally were only exiled to Japan to keep them away from their psychopathic uncle. Lelouch is in shock. His life, his revenge, everything was based on a lie, and worse, was part of his parents' plan. Rejecting the idea of a stagnant world without lies, Lelouch uses his Geass on a scale never seen before. He gives a direct order to the collective unconscious of humanity, the very god of that place, demanding that time not be stopped.
God! Collective unconscious! Please don't stop the march of time!
His parents' plan crumbles, and Charles and Marianne begin to disintegrate, absorbed by the system. 1 month later, Lelouch enters the palace, sits on the throne, and declares himself the 99th Emperor of Britannia. And to shock everyone, Suzaku appears by his side as the Knight of Zero. From a distance, Schneisel watches it all with the smile of someone who already has his next move planned. Lelouch has barely sat on the throne, and he's already turning Britannia upside down. He abolishes the nobility, frees the numbers, and basically simply hits delete on the old power structure. The Black Knights are confused. Is he a hero or a villain? Lelouch and Suzaku, however, know exactly what they're doing, following a plan called the Zero Requiem. Obviously, not everyone is happy with the changes. The remaining Knights of the Round, led by Bismarck, move to attack, but Suzaku, in his new Lancelot Albion, simply annihilates them all. The new machine is so OP, it's practically a video game cheat code. The final fight is against Bismarck, the Knight of One, who has a Geass that lets him see into the future, but Suzaku has Lelouch's live command, which turns him into a fighting machine so unpredictable that not even the future can keep up. An easy victory for the Knight of Zero. After the spectacle, Lelouch announces his intention to join the UFN and sets up negotiations at Ashford Academy. There, he has a tense encounter with Callan. She tries to get some truth out of him, even kisses him, but Lelouch remains as cold as a stone. It's a final goodbye. In the negotiation room, the real plan is revealed. It was all a trap. With Britannia's population, Lelouch would have the majority vote and control the entire UFN. Suzaku storms the location and takes all the leaders hostage. Lelouch has become the enemy of the world. But just when you think things can't get any worse, a plot twist explodes on screen. Pendragon, the capital of Britannia, is completely destroyed by a Flea missile. And who appears on the broadcast to claim responsibility? Schneisel, who reveals his new ally in the fight against Lelouch. Nunnally herself, very much alive and now on the opposite side of her brother. Lelouch is in a state of shock seeing Nunnally alive and allied with Schneisel. Outwardly, he wears the mask of a villain and treats her as an enemy, but inside, the guy is shattered. Suzaku has to shake his friend back to reality and remind him of their plan, the Zero Requiem. There's no turning back. On the other side, we learn Schneisel's plan, to use the flying fortress Damocles and its Flea missiles to rule the world through fear, like a Thanos who doesn't snap his fingers but threatens to erase cities from the map. He is so determined that he even shoots his own sister, Cornelia, when she calls him a madman. Meanwhile, C2 comforts Lelouch, who is at his limit. She promises to stay by his side no matter what. The next 10 days are pure preparation for the war that will decide the fate of the world. The final battle begins like a global-scale chess match, with Lelouch and Schneisel moving their pieces with surgical precision, without firing a single shot. But the calm doesn't last. As Schneisel's forces begin to surround him, Lelouch plays his most insane card. He triggers a massive eruption of Mount Fuji, using the underground Sakuradite to turn the battlefield upside down. The move destroys part of the enemy fleet, but also sacrifices his own ground troops. Schneisel's response is brutal. He convinces Nunnally to pull the trigger, and a Flea is fired. The explosion is partially contained, but the damage is immense.
It's useless. It can't be stopped. The flare went critical the moment it was fired from the Damocles.
Lelouch finds himself at a disadvantage, with the world against him and his sister in command of the most powerful weapon in existence. Things have gotten ugly. A Black Knight's ship takes off as the sky explodes with another Flea bomb. Lelouch, seeing that the situation looks like a Michael Bay movie, orders his troops to advance relentlessly to force the Damocles to expend all its ammunition. Inside the fortress, Schneisel informs Nunnally that the next warhead is ready, and she fires without hesitation. Lelouch realizes that conventional tactics no longer work against a rain of nuclear bombs. Jeremiah attempts a heroic charge but runs into a giant energy shield, like something out of Doctor Strange, only much bigger. C2 joins the fight in her Lancelot but admits they are now practically spectators. Desperate, Lelouch orders the Avalon, filled with hostages, to ram the Damocles. He's counting on Lloyd, the mad scientist, who seems to have a secret solution. Meanwhile, in space, the battle rages on. Suzaku faces Shinkei and then Todo, breaking his mech as if it were a toy. The Avalon is hit and begins to fall. Lelouch says goodbye to his team and goes to find Nina, who provides the final piece of the puzzle to stop the Fleas. He also has a serious talk with C2, admitting he would kill Nunnally if he had to. It's at this moment that Cowan storms the hangar, but C2 holds her back to allow Lelouch to escape. Lelouch and Suzaku put their plan into action. Nunnally fires another Flea, but Lelouch, in 19 seconds, calculates all the necessary data. Suzaku launches the Flea Eliminator, and the bomb simply vanishes into thin air. Using the vacuum from the blast, Suzaku punches a hole in the Damocles through sheer brute force, knocking Nunnally from her chair and causing her to lose the key.
Ready? Fly in! They've got...
Lelouch and Suzaku invade but are met by Gino. While Suzaku holds off his former friend, Lelouch proceeds on foot. Schneisel, thinking he's won, flees in a shuttle, leaving his sister behind. But Lelouch was already in the control room, waiting for him. With a touch on the shoulder, he uses his Geass. You will serve Zero. Checkmate. Lelouch then goes to Nunnally to get the key but is met with a surprise. She opens her eyes. She broke their father's Geass through pure willpower and asks him point blank, "Are you going to use your Geass on me too?" The final battle takes place outside the Damocles, but the real confrontation is between siblings. Nunnally, now able to see, faces Lelouch and reveals her own plan, to turn the Damocles into the world's symbol of hatred so that everyone would unite against it. Lelouch is shocked to realize she had the same idea he did. Heartbroken, he uses his Geass on her one last time and takes the key. Meanwhile, the fights come to an end. Jeremiah defeats Anya and, in an act of mercy, uses his Geass canceller to restore her memories. The most anticipated fight between Suzaku and Callan reaches its climax. The two destroy each other's mechs until Callan manages to pierce Suzaku's Lancelot, which explodes. She wins, but faints, and is rescued by Gino. With the key in hand, Lelouch declares himself Emperor of the world. All hail Lelouch! 2 months pass and he has become an absolute tyrant, hated by all. He organizes a parade to publicly execute the leaders of the Black Knights and the UFN, including a chained Nunnally. It is then, amidst the crowd, that the figure of Zero emerges. Everyone is confused, but Callan understands everything instantly. The new Zero is Suzaku. A flashback reveals the brilliant and tragic plan, the Zero Requiem. Lelouch would become the world's #1 enemy, so that his death at the hands of Zero would unite humanity. Lelouch faces his destiny with a smile, remembering the phrase, "The only ones who should kill are those who are prepared to be killed." Suzaku, crying beneath the mask, fulfills his promise and runs his sword through Lelouch's chest.
Going to be a hero now. The Messiah who saved the world from Emperor Lelouch V. Britannia, the enemy of the world.
As he falls, Lelouch touches Nunnally's hand, who finally understands her brother's entire sacrifice and weeps desperately while the crowd celebrates the death of the tyrant and the return of their hero, Zero. In the epilogue, the world is at peace. Nunnally is the new empress, with Zero, Suzaku, as her guardian. We see that everyone has found their own path. The series ends with C2 traveling through the countryside, speaking to the sky as if talking to Lelouch, finally free from her solitude.